So today I think Denis Villeneuve is a big name right now because of Dune, because of Blade Runner 2049,
Exactly.
Arrival.
Yeah.
We see him for a lot of the sci-fi epics, if you will.
Yeah, this
But I
is
think
not.
a lot of people have forgotten 2013's Prisoners.
When Kyle pitched this movie to me, Prisoners, I was like, that movie, should we do it? And I looked and I saw the Deke was the cinematographer. Well, heck yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that. We're going to talk
Roger's
about
doing the movie.
the pre-Oscar won Roger Deakins, the deserving to win Oscar Roger Deakins in Prisoners.
So you got Dennis directing and Roger cinematography. We got to talk about it, man.
Yep, we're prisoners to it. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick for the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals to join. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out the webpage for critics reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about, I don't know, a sleeper hit kind of from 2013.
Yeah, word of mouth hit, yeah.
Kind of word of mouth. It is Prisoners.
So on Thanksgiving, Keller Dover's daughter and her friend go missing. While the police are searching for the possible kidnapper, Keller begins to take matters into his own hands to stop the man he believes responsible. But does he really know who took the girls?
Okay, so this is Dennis before Sicario, right?
Before Sicario, I believe after Enemy, which was the first film he made with Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, which I think Sicario is one that, all right, we've got to pay attention to this guy.
Yeah, because this film only had the one nomination, which is, I mean, it's a win to get one nomination at the Academy Awards.
Yes, first
for
movie,
cinematography.
Even if it's kind of your first movie.
Yeah, whereas like Sicario is, I remember Sicario was the one where people were talking Best Picture. It didn't get nominated for that, but people were talking like this is a Best Picture worthy film. But Prisoners, I remember being the word of mouth one. I remember seeing the trailer, seeing the poster, and being like, oh, okay. And then people would just tell you like, it's out. You gotta check it out.
And just from a lot of the people we know from outside in from film industries, we know Roger Deakins not going to win with a journeyman director.
Yeah.
If you know your stuff, he'll work with you. If you don't know what the hell you're doing, he is not going to work with you.
Yeah.
So if you're a new guy and Roger is going to work with you, there has to be something, a talent, a skill that he recognizes and works with you.
Yeah, probably the most. I mean, I struggle to say with recency bias because he's still working, but I would say maybe the most important cinematographer ever. I mean, like the most notable one at the very least. The man has just like, I know people who don't know movies that know who Roger Deakins is.
The Deep, right? Yeah. And I'm just saying, he won't work with everybody, but if you know your stuff, he'll work with you.
Yep.
And if you obviously Dennis knows somebody, because also you got Jake Gyllenhaal working with you, and you got Hugh Jackman, and you got Maria Bello, who I wish she would do more. I don't see enough of her.
Yeah, she actually wrote the screenplay for The Woman King that came out this year.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe she got the idea to work with Viola Davis on that from this film.
Yeah, because Viola Davis is, and you got Terrence
Howard, yeah.
Terrence Howard's in it, who with all the controversies with him, he's still a wonderful actor. You have a core nexus of fantastic acting. We usually sign Hugh Jackman, that is the superhero Wolverine guy.
Yeah.
But he's got his bones doing fantastic work before he even attached to do it.
That's the inherent kind of joke of the whole thing is you've got Wolverine looking for his lost kids, and you've got Mysterio playing a character named Loki who's going to help him. You've got Amanda Waller hidden in the background. You've also got War Machine. Like you've got the Riddler. You've got everybody in this
the
movie.
Riddler who sings Batman stinks, in the movie.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah, man, I'd forgotten about the rhyme that he sung in that, so when I got it, it was kind of like he said it in the movie.
All right, I did it too. He said it. He said it in the movie, and you got Paul Dano very much doing early stages of the Riddler.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Dano is. I'm so happy he's kind of broken out from playing this character. He's done it many times since.
Right,
and he's
we
done it
talked
many
about
times before.
Numbers with Angelina Jolie. He was
the Taking Lives he was doing, and then
right.
The Riddler character, and there's that extent if he's played this version a lot.
Little Miss Sunshine.
But I like that when he returns to it. When we get him in this film, when we get him in the Riddler, it's still great because he's doing like this really great character that he's just repurposing a lot, and he's got more keys than that. So
the script is kind of, I would say, a little bit like an Onion. I'm going to use a reference if you haven't seen it, The Sweet Hereafter, where there is a traumatic event, but we're more invested to the aftershocks of each character, how it plays out, rather than solving the mystery. Obviously, we want to solve the mystery.
Yeah.
But how it affects every individual in the story.
Mm-hmm.
is very personable because it's one of those that's gonna cause aftershocks for everybody involved, and everybody's not going to come out clean. It's going to damage everybody.
Yeah, this is very much a no one leaves unscathed kind of movie, and I do adore those. Like going into those, I adore those from the outset. Is I like seeing people changed by events, like drastically changed, and that's exactly what happens to Keller Dover in the film, Hugh Jackman. Going into it, it feels like every character has a different reaction to what's going on and a different response, but it never feels like a forced anthological thing where their stories are still intertwining quite a bit and they're still being able to build off each other. There's the scene where, Keller brings in Franklin Terrence Howard to show him what he's been doing. And then Franklin alerts his wife, Nancy, and she comes over too, and she has a different response to what's going on. There's that slowly
Right, we
building.
always talk about with writing, especially with directing, you want to capture the response to understand characters.
Yes.
Rather, obviously, you say your lines is important, but the character's response to what's happening is far more revealing and far more important to capture.
Yeah, and ostensibly, Jackman is the lead of the film, but I don't feel like any character is not given the time that's necessary to.
That's where Dennis is skillful. You could do a big scope, but everybody gets a moment that doesn't seem forced.
Yeah.
It seems like they can have their time.
Which is probably one of the reasons the movie runs 2.5 hours. And
Still
both
does.
times I've seen it, I'm like, this movie can't need 2.5. And as I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, it's going. Like I'm not really bored at any point throughout the narrative. But you don't see a lot of these movies where it's just about a kidnapping, and it's 2.5 hours, and it cruises. So,
but once again, lighting is magnificent in this movie.
Oh yeah.
But understand it's still effective framing because even though you don't go in the car and you have a simple dialogue of Hugh Jackman talking to his son, but they have this they don't share the scene together.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I'm telling you, and the reaction telling you. It's almost like there's still a separation still there, even though he talks how much he dotes on his son.
Yeah.
But there's still how you frame it. It's still like we're not part of the same universe. Even though we're sharing the truck together. I really can't relate to you, but that's visually seeing that.
Their distance is created there because early on in the film he shares shots with his whole family. Their sequences walking across the street for Thanksgiving where they're in the scene together, and it's very noticeable. And then as that distance is created, they're not sharing the shot anymore, and you don't see them re-share the shot until there's that violent outburst in the bedroom near the end of the film, where you see them both in frame again because they're hitting heads. They're finally coming together to get through their crap.
Right, yeah. It came out late in November. Was it November of 2013?
I think, 2013. Yeah, okay.
It didn't get a lot of one of those grassroots campaigns. Reviews got high reviews.
Oh yeah.
Even kind of academic kind of awards, kind of notoriety.
I had no interest in seeing the movie until there was that you got to see this movie. And I remember being changed at the end.
Yeah, they sold it as a very solemn movie, and I was like, I'm not in the mood. I just want a lighthearted. Movie is not like a lighthearted movie at all.
This movie fits in an unofficial trilogy of Jake Gyllenhaal investigating dark things. There was Zodiac, there was this film, and then following up with
very
Nightcrawler.
much like Zodiac.
Yeah, because Nightcrawler is a very different character and a very different investigation.
Right, we don't know his motivation.
Doing it still.
His motivations are very slimy.
So if you want Jake Gyllenhaal to depress you for 7 hours, that's my trilogy right there: Zodiac, this film, and Nightcrawler.
And it contaminates him, even though he's trying to do good and solve the mystery. He's going to go somewhere he doesn't want to go. He beats up the interrogation guy and all this stuff, but then reveal it's not really red herrings, but you find out other people's histories, and they're not really the honest people either. You have the interrogation, the guy who commits suicide, and you realize that maybe he's off, right? So it's always like, do I really want to find out about what happened to these kids or not?
That's the question, is when we learn, are we going to learn something that's going to make us feel better? And I still don't know, finishing the movie. But one thing that it does have a lot in common with Zodiac is it feels like structurally the films have such a wide map of plot points that you keep wondering, are we ever going to connect these? Are we ever going to make sense of all these plot points? And they both do a really good job of coming together at the end, and you feel like you've got a fulfilled story. But there's such a wide map being placed out that it's almost easy to get overwhelmed in both those films.
Slightly, yes. But you have to frame it simply. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of simple techniques, but that's not just to advance the production.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of weight where you can just set the camera if you got the lighting right. There's a lot of just Hugh Jackman just going off. We're like, oh my God, he's going to blow up.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of camera movement because he's provided the action, the intensity. You don't want to mess with that.
Yeah. Deakins, one of the things is that I find very, very workable about him is that he has so much restraint. as a DP. In that
You think he's
he's got the flashy shots are what we look at. We look at the Skyfall scene where they're fighting in front of the billboards. We look at anything in 1917. But his best element is that he knows when to restrain his camera and just let the actor do the work. Because that's not always easy to do. You know, as a DP, you want to create the flashy shots and stuff, and sometimes it's about just setting your damn camera down, making sure it's well lit, well framed, and then letting the actor work. And that's what he does here with the scenes with, I think, both Gyllenhaal and Jackman, is that he knows when I got to stop and let them act. Yes. And I think that's a good collaboration there, is that Deakins knows this is worthwhile, just the performance.
Just the effective of watch Gyllenhaal beat up his computer.
Yeah.
When he just showed from overhead.
Oh, man. That shot, you know, I was watching this one the other night at like 1 a.m. And so it's something I'm watching at kind of low volume because, you know, I'm in bed, I'm watching the movie and stuff. And as I'm paying attention, there's those outburst moments just like completely like jumpstart your heart. It's not a late night movie that I suggest watching, but it was really, really powerful stuff.
So I don't know, what's the title referencing? Because it's a very unique title for what we're hearing for.
Well, there's a lot of people taking a lot of prisoners. And I think at its simplest, it's almost about being prisoners to a system. I think the title is very deceiving
for what you observe.
Oh, yeah. It's like we talked about with Barbarian, where like I didn't really care for the title of that film because I didn't feel like it really fit the narrative, that it really fit what was going on with that movie. This one, I feel like Prisoners is literally we didn't have another title, but also there's the simplicity of there's a lot of people taking prisoners.
There's also the simplicity of the villain, which... For a complex story, the simplicity of the villain is still effective because villains are ones that I've hurt. I'll make sure everybody else is hurt as equally as I am.
Yeah.
And that makes her the villain.
Yeah.
If I'm hurting, then everybody else is going to have to hurt just as much as I am.
Yeah, there's so much internalized pain and almost even just being a prisoner within your own body, which is kind of how like Paul Dano's character is, which is kind of how Terrence Howard is a prisoner to what he has to do. Like he's being put in a situation he doesn't want to do this.
Right, and you have Hugh Jackman's character. You completely validate all his talking points and his emotions, and you don't want to say, just chill out and let us do a job because he's going to punch you in the face.
Yeah. Well, in the moment that Keller brings in Franklin and brings in Nancy, they are now prisoners to what he has done. They are now part of what he has done. They will be held accountable for what he has done, whether or not they choose to, just by not turning him in. So it's that, again, like we all have these like prisons that we build around us and then the ones that we're stuck in as well. And his transformation is that escape, but it's not necessarily because he should escape, you know?
So up next is, well, our review, we kind of lead a little bit, of Prisoners. So this is my first time seeing it. I kind of forgot about it because the title is just so, I want to say generic, but it's one of those like, oh, it's that movie. Then I realized it's almost 10 years old.
Yeah, I was surprised about that.
What? It's 10 years old? Right.
So this movie only having been watched once. It had quite an impact on me 9 years ago.
And I think if you like Dennis' stuff, you will understand where he comes from this movie. That it's effective use of assembled casting. That's where he's really talented, how he can balance out. And that's probably why he's right for Dune.
Yeah.
Everybody gets the equal amount of time.
Yeah, that's true. He does always have
without looking
really elaborate casts, where people even in smaller roles, because I would say, you know, Nancy, Viola Davis's character, is not a particularly giant role. She gets a lot to work with within those little moments that she gets, but it's not a large role, and not one that I would assume Oscar winner Viola Davis, you know, at the time even nominated, would get. But she took the role because she wanted to work with a good director, you know, and I think there is something to be said about that, is that he's got a good name. People want to work with Denis Villeneuve, and it gets him in.
Yeah, I think it's very compelling. You got an intriguing story. It's simple, but it's also complex at the same time. Because but it makes it complex as each character gets flushed out, and we understand their motivations, and they're not always a hero. There's not really a great hero in this movie. You have great villains in this movie.
Yeah. There's consistent moral quandaries throughout the entire film. Yeah. Each one is, you know, and each scene is presenting you in a different way. Even just the scene, like, spoilers, we're going to talk about near the end of the film real quick, when the daughter of Franklin and Nancy is found. The first daughter is found.
Yeah.
And there's that question. They run to the hospital because they want to see if she's got any knowledge on where their daughter is. But it's also like they're going to go in and they're going to scare the hell out of this child to try and get their kid.
Where is it? Where's my kid?
Yeah, where it might be doing more harm than good, and not just letting her wait until she can give you the information. And again, flying off the handle. Yeah. Like every moral quandary comes through, and characters, some of them make the right choice, some make the wrong choice, some make both. And it's really difficult to watch because you have to put yourself in that character role. Would I do that? Yeah. And it's kind of an ugly painting sometimes because I think maybe I would have done something horrible.
And you have to, if you're going to watch the movie, you have to understand, this is not like a pleasant, go happy, fun movie.
No.
You're going to get, it's a very solemn movie, but it's very foreboding. It's very rude. Yeah. Even the atmosphere is very, I don't think there's a sunny day throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, it's a pretty crummy holiday season, if you will.
Yeah.
I think, I remember seeing this the first time on the afternoon and finishing the movie and just not even knowing what to do with the rest of the night. Like I had it was like 5 o'clock. I was like, I guess I'll make dinner. Like, it's kind of just this like,
just
I'm emotionally drained by the experience. I think part of that goes back to a really strong screenplay from Aaron Guzikowski, he did the Papillon remake. He did Contraband, which was not a bad movie, pretty solid.
Thanks for pointing out.
Guzikowski was actually attached for a long time to a new Friday the 13th movie, and I was so excited about that idea just because you can think about like putting this kind of like story mapping onto a slasher movie just blew my mind. But there's those simple setups when they're walking over to Thanksgiving dinner, and there's that simple line about, why don't you fix up Grandpa's house and you could, let people live there? And he says, I can't afford it. It's like throwaway line, I can't afford to live there. And you don't think anything about the line until you realize, oh, he's going to use that house.
Yeah. Yes. It's one of those like, oh, that's the house, right?
Yeah.
He's using it for other means.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Consistently strong story beating the entire time through.
But there's not a hero. There's also villainies, but you understand the villainies, but you're not supposed to. I mean, you understand them.
Yeah.
But we're not going to sympathize for
exactly.
you. We're going to understand it, right?
This goes back to that common argument of, characters don't have to be likable if they're interesting. And a lot of these characters start likable and become less likable, but the interest level never wanes. And I think it's important to note that not all of our protagonists in every film need to be good people by the end of the film.
Right. We always assume protagonists need to be a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The common joke I make about like the Guardians of the Galaxy movie is that those are movies about assholes becoming less assholish, which is a character turn. But at the same time, you can become like more broken by society. You can turn the downtrodden into what you become.
Yeah, we don't know after all this that Hugh Jackman's going to come out and just start blazing.
Yeah.
Set the world on fire.
Sometimes people make the wrong call.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the movie is. And it's a moral question that it consistently asks you throughout. But there are a lot of characters in film that we punish and say they're a bad character because they didn't make the right choice. And I consistently defend that.
As a writer, it's hard to let that character that you despise and created, to let him have the light.
Yeah,
and
to let him feel real.
And make the decisions that you like, God dang it, don't do that. And he's going to do it.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman's character is like that.
As a writer, I've never had an issue with killing characters. There's that question of like, I don't want to kill my characters.
Make the decisions that you don't want them to do.
I hate to have my characters disappoint me.
Right, that's it.
Where it's just like, they're my children. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
You got to make your characters do the decisions that you're not going to like.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, again, going back to casting, Hugh Jackman is better in this role than Jake Gyllenhaal would have been, and vice versa.
Yes.
Because Jake Gyllenhaal, I can believe the darkness behind him. Hugh Jackman has rarely played a bad guy.
Well,
or even morally questionable.
Yeah. He's going to come in and fix your sink.
Yeah. He's my Wolverine. I want him to save the day. And then as he continues to go down the wrong path, I want to just tell him stop.
So, overall, I think it's a very effective, compelling movie. I think if I probably saw it in 2013, it would probably be on my list. It was never on there. I'd never seen it until for this review. I'm glad you pointed it out to me to see.
I was convinced you had seen it, but because the title was so commonplace that maybe you'd forgotten about it. So I'm glad you got to see the film for the first time, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, in a world
it's
of
kind of weird to say I enjoyed this movie, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I used that term when I described Itchy the Killer too, and that's maybe not the most correct terminology for it. We enjoy good movies, though, and
it's a very effective, fantastic movie. And as you can see, where Dennis has his talent.
Yeah, when he didn't have that special effects budget that he gets later on in his career, and he had to work with what he had.
Right, just on locations.
Yeah. So, have you seen Prisoners? Let us know down below.
Probably
your thoughts
did.
on the film.
Forgot about it because you want to forget.
You try to forget it as much as you can.
Right. Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts on the film down below, and maybe tell us which Denis Villeneuve we should cover next. There's a lot of movies that he's done, and that I really want to watch some. I still haven't seen Enemy yet, so it'd be cool to check that one out. So let us know which film we should cover next from the famed director.
Yeah. How the hell we miss not reviewing Dune? That's like
we'll
upper
come
alley.
back around
Oh
next
my
year
God.
when Dune 2 is out.
Right, come for Dune 2.
Yeah. So make sure to check out that. Please like and subscribe. They don't cost you a dime, and they really help to support the channel. And check out that Patreon link down below. Join the Patreon today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for joining us. You can find all my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
Hit that like and subscribe button, and you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts.